Well, hello, dear sisters and brothers. Welcome to the Faith Perspective here on Catholic SG Radio. I'm Andre Acha, she's Beatrice de Cruz, and you're indeed very welcome. Now, the Faith Perspective gives us an opportunity to discuss, trends that are moving along and getting the church to move within the world and how we are living our faith in the world as Christians. And each year, I just want to share with you, particularly for today's discussion, each year the Vatican and many dioceses mark World Communications Day on the 7th Sunday of Eastertide. Yes, and this year in particular, it'll be on the 21st of May. The World Communications Day actually was established back in 1967 as an annual celebration for the Church to reflect on the opportunities and the challenges that modern social communication presents to us. Namely, of course, we have the printed word, motion pictures, radio, of course, television and the internet, and nowadays, we're talking about AI as well. Yes, yeah. And so, World Communications Day sort of makes us sit down to think about what all these things do for us and, you know, how we need to think about how we use these channels of communication in the right manner.
That's right. And as announced by Pope Francis, to help us better reflect also on World Communications Day, this year we celebrate the 57th World Communications Day, and the theme is Speak with the Heart, Veritatem, facientes in caritate.
I was wondering whether you're going to do that.
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much. It means doing the truth in charity. So this theme connects with that of last year's 2022, which is Listen with the Ear of the Heart, and is intended to form part of the path that will lead the entire church to the celebration of the Synod in October 2023. Yes, so here with us in the studio, the Catholic SG Radio studio, is someone who actively shares in the mission of proclaiming the good news and communicating truth to others. So let us welcome Victoria Lim.
Hey, hello guys.
So happy to have you back in the studio. I'm sure some of you miss her also.
I don't know how we managed to, push you into the corner and say, okay, you're going to have to do this program. But anyway, we're very happy that you're with us, Victoria.
Yeah, certainly with a lot of bribes. And
yes, that's right. Yeah, we have to send her for breakfasts and what. Never mind, we won't tell you. Okay, so let's get down to business. Just share with us what exactly, you are in the Catholic News, so what exactly is the mission of the Catholic News and how is it realized through the work that you do?
Yeah, so the mission of Catholic News is communicating truth, forming faith. And, we tell stories of the Archdiocese, especially local news, things that are not covered in other, online sources.
Yes.
We cover all the parish news and what's happening, with our faithful here in Singapore. And on top of that, we also have faith formation stories, of course, to communicate truth with a capital T, of course. Most
Yes.
importantly. We have our writers like Michelle, for example. She writes many faith formation pieces, really sharing about the wealth of the church history, tradition, the teachings, and many more. We also, sometimes have priests also, who will come on board and share all these. I mean, just much like how Catholic Radio has as well, you sometimes invite certain priests to share about, upcoming, you have the Ascension and so many of the church's feast days. Yeah. There's just so much, to learn about the Catholic faith, and and on top of that, we also have, occasionally faith stories of the faithful, some anecdotes, short little quotes,
That's
about
nice.
them sharing about certain aspects, of how the Lord has touched them and how, they would like to share the good news with others. Yeah.
I think we need to be reminded, not only just hearing people say, this is what my faith has done for me, but actually reading it in print, it has a different impact.
Yeah, and I mean, the Bible itself is written word, right?
Absolutely.
And it was how the faith, I mean, of course, it was transmitted first in the early church through oral, and
the oral tradition of the
oral
church.
tradition, and then eventually it was written down, and eventually the church evolved, and we had scholars, doctors of the church, people studying and
doctors of the church.
Yeah, so I mean, the written word is, I mean, in a way, also it helps people to stop and go through the lines, and we can revisit text again.
Absolutely.
I've heard anecdotally from some people who read Catholic news, they actually take their time to go through the Catholic news. They read one page, and then the next day they look forward to reading another page, because they take the time to really recall what they've read, and also bring it with them in prayer, throughout the day as they go about their daily routine, their chores. Yeah.
My style of reading the Catholic news is I'll do a first glance, of all the pages and all the stories, and then, what catches my eye, of course, first. And then you're right, absolutely. On another day, you actually sit down and you begin to get into, the stories, and particularly if they are faith stories and they're teaching. When it's a little bit deeper, you really need to analyze or synthesize what is being read, or what's been written, and then what you've read, right? And it helps. It helps because you can take the time. You can take all the time in the world in that sense. But you should read. So, what is the strategy? Can you share with us the strategy of Catholic News now?
Yeah, so we go out to get the stories from the parishes, and also sometimes we do get some leads from the faithful. They will send in an email, and if we think that it's something that communicates truth, that forms faith, that most importantly evangelizes our Catholics here, because Catholic News, after all, is a medium, a tool for us to share the good news with others. So especially so, we always look for stories, or in fact story angles that are evangelizing in nature.
Right.
How has Jesus helped the people in the story, or how has the faith shape the way people think in order to maybe reach out to someone, or how has a certain perhaps Bible passage or a story of a saint, how has that helped that person to go out, and then, or I mean, even in struggles, and not just of course not just the joyful stuff, also those who are struggling and having maybe some difficulties, facing some difficulties, how have they embraced the cross? How have they turned to the Lord, and have themselves renewed so that they can continue their mission. In wherever they are called to.
Just bringing to mind the stories of those who were baptized at Easter, for instance, and their sharing of how they came to the Lord. I mean, it doesn't just fire within us Catholics, but I'm sure just ordinary people reading those stories will be asking themselves, so what is it about this faith that what is it about this faith that will touch people? And some people do radical things.
And I mean, Andre, it's really very inspiring. You brought up the example of the Easter sharing, and hearing the stories is so varied. I think I was sharing previously, on the Catholic News Roundup.
Yes.
Just a little plug there.
A little plug, it seems.
So as I was saying, as I was listening really to the stories of these individuals, it's so different how the Lord called them.
Yeah.
And one of them was through a colleague at work. And it wasn't even because the colleague was, talking to him about the faith, but she put a crucifix on her desk. And that began the conversation because, this man, he was searching for the meaning in life, and he saw the crucifix and he asked his colleague, hey, tell me more about that. Like, what is that all about? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and so many more. I have a father who said that he wanted to put his daughter through a Catholic school, and that started the process of him discovering what the faith is about. And even he shared with me after, he said he wants his daughters to now
be baptized?
Yeah, be baptized, to go. I mean, of course, on top of going to a Catholic school, to be baptized themselves and go through what he went through in RCIA so that they can experience the joy of community. So, I mean, it's just so many ways that, and it bubbles in my heart, sometimes to listen to all their stories, because it really shows how the Lord is creative, and so he's just so creative. I'm just amazed at the different ways that he calls people. And even sometimes, it may seem a little bit underhanded, or like, you hear the story and be like, oh, you want to put your daughter through a Catholic school, that's why. But then, somehow he makes the path straight again, because you can really hear the joy and the zeal, through the phone as I'm talking to him, how much he wants this for himself.
Yeah, now I don't know if you are hearing the joy and the zeal in Victoria's voice as well, because that's what I'm feeling in the studio right now.
Yeah, and I understand, that what do you mean by that bubbling or that in your heart when you listen to those stories, right? Yeah, you can tell.
I really hope that I can, I always pray to the Lord and ask him, please give me, the necessary graces, the necessary inspiration, so that I can, put it down on paper, so that people, others as well, can experience this bubbling in my heart. And because I don't want to just experience it for myself, I want others to experience that as well.
So that's putting additional pressure on yourself in that sense.
Yeah.
Because you want to convey, as you said, that spiritedness or that bubbling.
Yeah. The joy, right?
The joy, that the person feels, and you are trying to communicate that on paper. I mean, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's not always easy to do that.
Yeah, you have to use a lot of colours,
That's true.
in your writing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
A lot of description, a lot of... I think that it actually also takes a lot of reflection as well for me on my part.
Yeah.
After getting the story, is to really sit down and mull over it. I mean, in prayer, and asking the Lord, how can I convey this? Or like... first of all, thanking him for that opportunity, but then asking him, how can I convey what has this person, told me? In a way that others too may experience that bubbling in their hearts.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what keeps you going?
I would say prayer, definitely. I'm talking with the Lord. I mean, it's, for me, because my job is always, on the move, I'm constantly meeting with people. So for me, I have realized that I always speak to the Lord as I'm traveling, as I'm walking, as I'm, taking the bus, taking the MRT, walking hurriedly.
But walking with him. So that's good.
I realized that it's a lot of, because initially I thought, I have to go to the chapel and pray, but I've realized that, that's not how I communicate with the Lord. I think how I really have the best conversations with him is as I'm walking, as I'm taking the bus and the train especially, and all these thoughts just... I'll be like, oh Lord, what should I do? How am I going to convey this story? Please send me the people. Please send me the inspiration. Because sometimes going to an event, there are so many people.
That's right.
And just recently, over the weekend, I was at St. Joseph's and St. Joseph's Bukit Timah, and I had to get a quote, from someone to really express the joy of the event, or because there were so many people at St. Joseph's Bukit Timah. I was like, what? They had a huge carnival and
fantastic, right?
And for the first time I saw so many. I mean, of course, I've seen in the last year, but it was the first time in a long time
since COVID, right?
Yeah, I was experiencing a feast day in a parish where there were so many people and everyone was so happy. And I was like, oh no, like Lord, what am I going to do? How am I?
Who are you going to pin down? So to
Please
speak.
send me that individual. And after I said that, as I turned around, I saw this lady standing right in front of me.
Wow.
And because I was praying for a young person. and she was young. And I approached her and said, hey, hi, I'm from Catholic News. Would you be open to giving me a quote about how, you're feeling today? And she was like, oh, why me?
That's always the first question. Why me? Normal, human.
Yes.
Yeah.
We would do the same. Why me?
And just before she could arrow her friend, I said, the Holy Spirit send me to you.
Amen.
You anyhow.
Yeah, we've got to learn from our early church fathers, right? They always said that. Like,
I guess it could be. I mean, we can almost imagine the angel Gabriel before Our Lady, and she said, "Why me?" Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and she shared with me such a lovely testimony. So sorry. She shared with me a lovely testimony about actually she hasn't been back to church in 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I was shocked. I was like, wow. Then definitely, the Lord has sent me to you, to get your story and to hear from you.
Wow. I don't think she was expecting.
Yeah, she was.
A question like
just
that.
Standing there,
Yes.
Yeah.
Minding her own business.
Yeah.
Being the normal recluse Catholic.
And she shared with me such a powerful story.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, she was sharing with me how she was, of course, afraid to come back because it's been so long. And of course, initially it was because of COVID. And then after that, it was because it's been so long.
Guilt.
Yeah, how am I coming back? And
Yeah.
she said her friend had invited her to the feast day to just sell tickets, very non-threatening, right?
Nice,
Come sell feast day coupons. Oh, you don't have to go to,
For Mass or anything like that.
just come. And she came, and to her surprise, she was telling me her first reaction as she entered the church was, why have I taken this long to come back? Yeah, because the community spirit and just the joy of the people, it did something to her. And she said I then decided to go for Mass as well. So it was just, on top of selling tickets, she went to Mass. So that day, and it's things like that make me just so happy as well. Like to know that how the Lord, like I said before, how the Lord works.
He works.
Yeah, in so gentle yet,
still very strong and persuasive ways.
Profound ways. Yeah.
Pope Francis, we were reading earlier on one of our stories, and he was actually speaking to the priests called the Spiritan Fathers from the Holy Spirit, and he said God caresses you, and brings you closer to Him, and I think this is sort of sounds like this was her experience, right?
And it's just lovely how we. In our human mind, we think the Lord is so far away, so, how to say, like, omnipotent, right? But yet, actually, He comes to us in such human and tender ways.
Yes.
And I think it's something that the Pope also emphasized a lot in his message, listening with the heart.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and
for our World Communications Day.
For World Comms Day this year.
Yeah.
He spoke about, meeting people where they are,
Absolutely.
without prejudice, without our preconceived notions of, how are they supposed to be like, what are they supposed to do, but just meeting them where they are. Yeah, and it's much like the synodal process as well, as we are asked to listen with the ear of the heart, and to not just, of course, not just listen, but to then respond. Not react, but respond to our brothers and sisters.
No, I'm so glad you said that, because there is a great difference between responding and reacting.
Yeah.
A reaction is a knee-jerk response.
Yeah.
It's a knee-jerk, and knee-jerk, it's usually less thought is put into.
Less reflection.
Yes,
Yeah.
but when you respond, it's different. Your whole psyche, in even your body, moves in a different way.
Yeah, and you are much...
And responds in a different way.
And you're much like your brother and sister in a sense, because you have absorbed all they have said,
Yeah.
and lived their experience, sort of, I mean,
Yeah,
not
you
fully.
imbibe what they are saying.
Yeah. And then you respond.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he calls us to do, Pope Francis,
Indeed.
to respond.
Well, you see, that's the problem with us. We don't have time to listen to each other. Most times when somebody's talking, we're already getting ready. We're thinking, oh, okay, how am I supposed to respond to this person? Or what am I going to tell him? Or
Yeah, we already have our agendas, sometimes in place.
Exactly.
Yeah, like we are going to go and meet this person, for example, and then we're going to say,
I want to get this story this way. You know?
Or like, I'm going to make sure that he goes to church. I'm going to make sure that he says the rosary, and all these, funny thoughts that we have in our head.
Yeah.
But, the Lord is saying, hey, throw those funny thoughts away.
Yeah.
Don't, and your judgment and your preconceived notions, because it is I who will reach out to the person in my own way.
Exactly.
Yeah, and through the Holy Spirit. Yeah.
See?
Well, if you've just joined us today on The Faith Perspective, we're speaking with Victoria Lim, who is a correspondent at Catholic News. And she's also actively involved in communicating truth and forming faith. Yeah. So, Victoria, you've been sharing with us stories of how, because you meet a lot of people and you hear their stories. Was there a memorable encounter for you personally, or was there a most moving event that has touched your heart? Could you share with us?
Do you have time for two?
Oh yeah,
two just came to mind.
Don't worry, of course.
Yeah, I think first of all is meeting with our priests. Yeah, so during COVID. The COVID period, I mean, we couldn't go out to really get any stories. Right. But I mean, we could meet people one-on-one or in small little groups. And I had the privilege and the opportunity to meet with Father Paul Stays, a CICM priest.
Yes.
And it was a very inspiring moment, I would say, for myself, because at that time, all of us were behind closed, huddled up in our homes because it was
isolated and all that.
Isolation and everything. Could only have like maybe one or two visitors, I think, at that
That's
time.
right.
And so I was his one visitor that day. And it was a very interesting experience because to see, I think he's now in his 80s, I believe.
Yes.
To just see
still very sharp.
Yes, and very spree, and that was precisely what got me so fired up. I was like, wow, like he's so like how to say on fire, yeah. And so meeting with him was certainly something that I think it inspired me a lot, of course it also inspired me on my journey, because at that time, of course, it was tough because we were not really meeting people. We were meeting online. So, when he said yes to a face-to-face, I was like, oh, okay, thank God. And we went there and he shared with me, how he was living really during the COVID period.
Right.
He was still saying Mass. He was taking the bus, he said that he doesn't like to be driven. So he would take the bus to, I think, the FMM Sisters Chapel to celebrate Mass for them.
That's right.
And he would go to crossings, whenever he could.
That's right. He's their resident barman, so to speak.
Yeah.
Mixologist.
So I was just very inspired that someone so senior, so old, was still very fired up in the faith and was still sharing what he could with the people, about how the Lord has touched his life, about how the Lord loves, them. And so I for me, that was one of the inspiring moments. And I think I've also learned a lot from him as well, through that very short interview, just to be who I am as a person, and to appreciate what the Lord has made me to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm just the only one person,
Exactly.
you know, in this universe that
Right.
the Lord has created me, and yeah, I'm the only one that can do whatever He has blessed me with. So yeah.
The only time people can come to that conclusion is when they are comfortable with themselves, you know, and they know what the Lord has done for them and has done through them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, second
Yeah.
story.
Second story. I think for me, it was experiencing the Catholic Welfare Services homeless night mission.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think, and I've covered a few stories, and I think one in particular is their Hey Jude concert that they had, I think, end of last year,
Right.
for their homeless and yeah, I can't remember the other word, but
The rough
yeah,
sleepers, is
rough
it?
sleepers.
Ah,
Yes,
right.
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Beatrice.
No problem.
Yeah, and yeah, the concert was just amazing because I mean it was a different setting. You know, instead of us walking and meeting them, you know, at their homes, this time they all came to Agape Village,
Right.
and there was a big concert called Hey Jude, and I asked Brian from Catholic Welfare Services,
Yes.
and he said, yeah, we called it Hey Jude because Saint Jude is the patron saint of hopeful cases. And I was like, oh, okay.
Hopeful.
Yes. Yeah. You know, he twisted, you know, in a way that, I mean, of course, in a positive way.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And yeah, it was just the night ended with a nice song and just I think standing there and seeing everyone, all their volunteers, and even you know, their homeless and all their friends and their brothers and sisters there. Yeah, I was like, wow, this is. I couldn't describe the moment really. It was just so.
You do know
Yeah.
the theme of what Hey Jude is about, right?
Oh, is it? I think I read online that it was John Lennon writing the song for. Wait, or is it the other way around? Paul McCartney wrote the song for John Lennon's son. I think after the divorce.
That's right.
Yeah, his
That's
parents'
right.
divorce or
That's
something, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And but it's you know it was this also this for this boy to discover himself as well. You know, and of course seeing his parents you know go their separate
Yeah.
ways. And I mean his father and mother also both were characters unto themselves.
Yeah.
And so this child was really so thanks to Paul McCartney in that
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, and such a joyful tune. I mean, when I read the lyrics, I was like, okay, it's quite bleak actually, but
Yeah, yeah.
somehow he managed to make it. Yeah,
But it's also a calling out
yeah,
of you know these homeless because some of these homeless people are homeless not because they don't have homes,
yeah, correct.
but really because their families
by choice, right?
they you know somehow or other things are not clicking at home
Yeah.
and you know there's misunderstanding
Yeah.
sadly you know
Yeah, and I really appreciate how Brian, you know, before we go on the homeless mission,
yeah
he always says, you know, if you have time to judge, then you have no time to love.
hmm
Yeah, and I think it also connects very well with the World Comms Day message.
absolutely
Yeah, and I think that's something that I carry with me, what I've learned from the homeless night mission.
Yeah.
It's something that I also carry with me in my work, because if I have time to judge others, you know,
Yes.
of like how they are or like why they do certain things,
correct
then I have no time to love them.
absolutely
Yeah, I've lost that opportunity really.
Right.
Yeah.
so well said that's so well said and that's a great realization.
Yeah.
When we went, when I had the opportunity to go on one of these night missions as well, it tore my heart out, so to speak, and because just seeing people and yeah, and so we learned from Brian also that these people, some of them were out there by choice,
Yeah.
by choice in a sense that they were avoiding situations in their lives that they were not ready to deal with, I
Yeah.
think.
And perhaps also sometimes they were doing what was best for the family, right? I mean,
Yes.
yeah, because if they
Yeah.
were to stay at home, then if the quarreling continues, then it wouldn't do anyone any good as well.
Correct.
So
Correct.
yeah, it's
So-
a whole myriad of things.
It
Actually,
is,
Yeah.
it
It's
is.
not just one thing that causes a person to do something so drastic like that.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's painful.
Yeah.
Even for us to see them, with cardboard boxes, sleeping in a corner in a building which is cold and impersonal, no privacy. Some of them get robbed and mugged, in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
It's dangerous. It's not, safe as Singapore is.
But it's not as safe as, the four walls of one's home where there's a locked door. Yeah.
And we take that for granted, actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, coming back a little bit to Catholic news, since you're there, could you share with us what are the plans for the future?
Yeah. So, we will continue, of course, to communicate truth and form faith.
Amen.
And, of course, we hope to really engage more of the younger audience as well, the young readers. Right now, we are a print publication, which of course is very important because it fills a certain need in our Archdiocese.
Right.
But at the same time,
and a certain demographic. Let's be open about it as well.
Yeah, to the seniors. But at the same time, we are hoping to reach out to younger families, with kids especially, because we have a dedicated children's page.
Oh yeah, I love that page.
With children's reflection and also some colouring activities for them.
Yeah, you got word puzzle also, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes the crossword puzzle.
Yeah. As well.
Correct.
Yeah. So we do hope to, reach out to the younger audiences as well. If it's through families and through kids, why not? And and I myself, I'm not that old. So,
no, you're not.
Yeah, so, I hope that with a young face, telling people that I work for Catholic News, I hope that would inspire other young people too.
That's
to
true.
Pick up a copy, to at the parishes, because, Catholic News has been around since 1935.
Correct.
Wow.
So, it's 12 years more before we celebrate its 100th anniversary.
Wow. I didn't realize that.
Close,
Not long enough.
No, not long more. Not long more. 1935.
So, there's just, as I was saying, there's just so much history. And what really excited me was how it went through the World War II.
That's right.
And the changes in our political scene as well, the breakaway with Malaysia.
That's right.
And so I think there's just so much history, with Catholic News. And if you go to the National Library, you can also see the earlier copies.
That's right.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so
That's right.
And it's interesting how to see how the church has progressed so much since then. And also so much how the church has not changed as well, because the processions are still here. I think that's something that I really noticed in the earlier editions.
We were just talking about processions this morning.
Yeah, correct. The ones at St. Joseph's Church, right?
Yeah.
And here as well.
Yeah.
Here as well.
So to actually see those photos, from way back then about how processions are being done, and then now, it gives me a sense that, the church is here to stay, and there is that stability as well.
Indeed.
To know that, we are here to stay and for the future. Yeah.
Amen.
Wow.
Nice way of putting that.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thanks so much, Victoria, and spending time with us. Today we've been speaking to Victoria Lim, and she actively, of course, shares the mission of communicating truth and forming faith, and she's a correspondent of Catholic News.
Yep, that's right. And just a reminder, if you're listening to us right now on our live stream, the Faith Perspective goes out every 2 weeks on Tuesday mornings at 8:30 a.m. So the encore broadcast of the program is at 8 p.m. tonight, and again tomorrow at 5 p.m. and Thursdays at 2:10 p.m.
Yeah, and of course, if you want to catch up on this interview at your own time, slowly, you want to, or at your pleasure, wherever you are, you can go to our Catholic SG Radio app, or you can, tune into Spotify or iTunes. You'll be able to pick that up there. Yep. So I'm Andrea Chuck. She's Beatrice to the Cruz. She's Victoria Lim.
Yes.
Thanks so much for joining us here on Catholic SG Radio. Bye-bye.
Bye.